It is nearly time to start redecorating my craft room again, but before we get into fixing the problems, I want to talk about what went wrong. There are a lot of things going on in here right now, and many of them are because it started to slope downhill and I just kind of let it go. But I think there are some root causes to what made it start to go downhill that I want to address when I redo the room. Let's talk about the major problems and a couple of the minor problems, and then we can talk about what I want to do to fix them. The first major problem is here. This should not surprise you. This was one of my New Year's resolutions for last year, was to fix this. I did pull everything out and reorganize it a little, but I didn't fix it. And let's look at why. This is completely unusable. When I first redid this room, I made the decision to kind of use these shelves that I already had. I have like half a bookshelf. I have this old craft organizer with drawers, all these plastic bins that don't really fit the space, and then these leftover wire shelves from reorganizing my yarn stash. And I have all of these crammed in here, and then on top of that, crammed full of stuff down here. Up here, these bins are mostly empty, which makes no sense. And then there's so much stuff crammed in here that I can't get to the drawers or the bins in the back, and I really can't access any of it. So it's a huge mess. It's too difficult to use, and it's an absolute eyesore and honestly a source of anxiety in general. Some of the organizational things that I did that I thought were a great idea, I wasn't totally wrong, but the execution wasn't great. I like how it looks when my fixed knitting needles are organized on these racks on the wall. However, they don't stay. This is too heavy for command hooks to hold up, and I'm a renter, so I'm not going to screw into these plaster walls and make a mess for myself to have to fix later. This won't stay on the wall. It falls down all the time. 90% of the time, it's leaning against my desk like this, because I can't get it to stay on the wall. So I need to think of a better way to hold these up. While we're here, let's talk about this desk that I've never once sat at and used. I don't even have a chair here. I just told myself if I need a chair, I'll roll the chair from my sewing desk over. I don't. It's always covered in junk because I don't use it like a desk. I don't need a desk. I just wanted to keep it in here because I already had it last time when I redid the room. It's not useful. The desk is going to go. While we're on the topic of desks, let's talk about the sewing desk. I have the corner allotted for sewing, and that's what I use it for. But this space isn't very usable because I have stuff on top, but also this shelving unit underneath, which blocks me from being able to move the chair down and use it. I think this needs to be reworked so that this section can be the desk and replace what that desk doesn't do. And then I'll have to come up with something else for the stuff that's here right now. Let's talk about this segment. Of course, I do still have to share the room with my cats. That's not going to change. But this bookshelf is a piece of junk that I already had, again, last time when I redid my room. I wasn't spending a ton of money last time. Not this time either, to be fair. But I didn't buy all new furniture. I took the opportunity to work with what I had to a large extent, and part of that was this bookcase, this desk, the junk in the closet, and now I know which parts really, really don't work. This bookcase is one of the things that really, really doesn't work because it's so cheap. I can't actually put a shelf full of books up here. All the books are on the bottom for a reason, because these shelves will bow and break if I actually fill them up with books. Not to mention, in my opinion, it's ugly. I don't want to have it. A lot of the pictures on this wall, I think, are in chintzy frames, again, that I already had when I did the renovation last time. I don't like the black plastic, black metal frames. Some of them are in pretty wooden frames. I'm going to keep those. I think I'm going to rework art in general. And that goes for this wall as well. I have this whole giant pile. All of these things are bags of yarn or yarn projects or craft related things that belonged to my grandmothers. One grandmother gifted me some of her knitting stuff that she had because she doesn't knit anymore. And then the other one, as you know, recently passed away. And I have so much stuff. These, as well as 3 boxes of knitting pattern books in my dining room that are taking up so much space. I mentioned in my recent Knit Year's Resolutions video that my stash is at capacity, but I didn't really tell you how. So when I initially set up this system, these boxes are like vaguely by weight. The top right corner starts with like lace weight and mohairs, and then it moves into fingering. And then once we get all the way down to the right over here, it's super bulky weight yarns. These bins underneath tend to be scraps or partial skeins, and they're packed. All of these are like pillows, just like stuffed full of yarn. And the yarns that I tend to use more now than I did when I initially did my stash update 2 years ago are like mohair, thin yarns, fingering weight to DK, and I really don't dip into bulky as much as I used to. So this side of the stash almost never moves except to decrease a little, and the other end is packed in really, really way too tight. So I do want to not redo my stash, but redistribute my stash. And I do always have these like baskets on the floor of slight overflow. And I think you saw there's more on my desk of overflow too. So I don't know, it's gonna take some reassessing. So as you know, because I mentioned in my Knit Year's Resolutions video, and if you didn't see that video, you're probably not subscribed, so you should subscribe because this video is the boring part. Who wants to talk about what's wrong with their craft room? You're gonna wanna come back and see what's right after I completely redo this room. What I talked about in that video that you probably already know is that I don't plan on changing my aesthetic at all. What I have dubbed maximalist plant grandma is definitely sticking around. I love this aesthetic. I love displaying yarn and thread and embroidery floss and pretty fabric and all of the colors and having a lot of plants around too. But I do need to reorganize and redistribute and kind of class up some stuff. This might be a view that you're kind of familiar with, but you'd see a much more cropped version of it on my podcast. And here's why. Annie's kind of demonstrating for us over here that this is the highway to the litter boxes. I have to pause my podcast constantly because my cats are walking in and out of the litter boxes and scratching litter and making yucky sand noises that we don't want to hear. And I'm carefully trying to crop my podcast so that you don't see that, but it's a pain to do. Not something I thought of when I was setting up my podcast corner here. And while we're on the topic, this wasn't a good spot for it anyway. My redoing my craft room video was literally the first YouTube video I ever made. I knew I wanted to redo my craft room. I knew I wanted to start a YouTube channel, and I just decided to take the opportunity to jump headfirst into both at the same time. I'm glad I did. I learned a lot from it, but that means that when I was setting up my craft room, I didn't have the experience of already having made YouTube videos when I decided to put this here. I knew from watching other people's videos and just general knowledge that natural light is needed in filming something like this. So I put my podcasting seat section across from the windows, which turns out to be really not great. It's direct light. It's not very diffused. It makes it difficult to film at certain times of day. And it also makes it so that I can't wear my glasses when I'm recording podcasts because they reflect the light that's directly across from me. It's not good. If I had known all this in the first place 2 years ago when I initially redid this room, I would have put the podcast corner over here, which I think is what I plan to do when we redo all of this. I was gonna change scenery again, but I can't move a cat on my lap. It'll be nuts. So let's talk about some of the fixes that I think are actually gonna fix this stuff. First of all, pretty straightforward. I'm getting rid of that desk. I'm getting rid of that bookcase. I'm getting rid of a lot of the organizers in the closet that are blocking other organizers and making things difficult for me. Once I get rid of that desk, I'm going to move this chair in my little podcast corner over there so it's got the natural light from the side so it doesn't have the litter box bathroom behind me, and it'll make it easier to frame and set up. I can actually take care to set up an aesthetic background this time, which I kind of try to do here, but again, I didn't have enough experience to know how I was going to be framing the shots and what I wanted it to look like. I'm going to be replacing a lot of the frames that I think aren't nice enough. I mean, a lot of them I think I would keep, but a lot of them I think look chintzy and don't work with the art or whatever is inside of them. So I'm going to be redoing my entire gallery wall here. That entire gallery wall, as well as this one and that one, because that's going to be the backdrop for my podcast. So it's something that I don't really have a plan for yet, but I'm going to work through it as I do it. I have to find somewhere else to hang my knitting needle things. I don't know if I'm going to continue to use those wire grid things or if I'm just going to use the same clips on a different surface. I'm not sure yet, but again, we've isolated what's not working today and we're going to work our way to what works. Taking all that stuff off the desk, finding a new place for that so I can use that leg of my sewing desk as a desk. And then, of course, pulling everything out of that closet and reorganizing it in a way that's actually accessible inside the closet. That way, once I have that, and I have purchased a couple pieces of furniture secondhand that are going to replace my bookcase and add a lot of storage and a beautiful focal piece right where I'm sitting right now. I'm not going to show you those today because this is what's wrong with my room, not about to be what's right with it. Once I have that added storage, I've fixed the closet situation and shuffled everything around, I will be able to kind of expand my yarn stash into a comfortable space. I will be able to sort through all of these items from both of my grandmothers that I've been avoiding sorting through for a long time and integrate them into the rest of my collection. And then I will also be able to fix everything, like everything. It's a reorganizing, rearranging thing, right? So once I've emptied out all of the storage, once I've upgraded the furniture to new, better storage solutions, then I think the rest of it will find a way to fall into place. It's time. I'm going to get started on the craft room today. I'm overwhelmed. It's a lot. I won't lie. Oops. So while I'm most excited to, be finished and have my beautiful, finished, happy, aesthetic craft room, my biggest motivation at the moment is to get everything to a state where I can bring the new furniture in here. I bought a couple pieces of new furniture to replace the stuff I'm getting rid of, and it's just been in our living areas downstairs, which is in the way and annoying. So let me tell you what I got. I bought a bookcase at an estate sale. It's solid wood. It looks not like it's not like some heirloom professional piece. It's actually a little bit rustic. I think by my assessment, it looks like it's made out of like stock lumber and stock like millwork trim, but it's pretty. I think they did a good job. It's much nicer than like a flat pack, boring bookcase that I could buy online for the same price. I paid $75 for the bookcase at the estate sale. And while I was there, I inquired and I picked up some sewing stuff too. So I got a little sewing box treasure chest and a thing full of thread and a thing full of buttons. So, I'm happy about that because I care very much about collecting thread and buttons for some reason, even though I use them so seldom. So I got that bookcase, which is nice. I like that there's trim on all of the shelves. It's definitely a lot sturdier than the one I have now. I'm not sure if it'll end up in the exact same place. I think I have to get up the other piece and see how that fits because that one's much bigger, but I am so excited about this piece. This hutch that I found on Facebook Marketplace absolutely embodies the maximalist plant grandma vibes. I am so thrilled that I found it. And the person that sold it to me was really great and worked with us a lot because we showed up with our SUV and realized that the top half of the hutch would absolutely not fit in our car. So we paid him for it and we took the dresser, which is the bottom half, with us that day. And then we had to borrow a pickup truck and go back and get the other half another day. But he was really sweet and gracious about it and let us do that. And he gave me a great price on it. And I really, really love it. And it's exactly what I wanted. It's maybe too big for the space, but it has everything that I wanted for the space. So I was like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make the whole room work around this piece because this is what I needed. When I was looking online for something to fill this space, I wanted something white or off-white because I've already got a lot of wood tones going on in here and I didn't want to contrast with that, but I don't want to go like black or gray. Those are too boring for my craft room. I like the white vibes. And I wanted something that had storage for sure. Hopefully storage on the bottom for things that I need to access less often. And then some sort of like pretty display area on top, like open shelves or glass cabinets or something like that. You know, I was looking at like IKEA and Wayfair and places that sell new furniture. And there's a lot out there that's gorgeous, but it's like more than I want to spend for this. There was so many options when I was antiquing and going to thrift stores and looking on Facebook Marketplace. But I just, in my head, just had this idea of this beautiful white cabinet that I could hide stuff in storage on the bottom, but have some pretty display shelves on top. And this is what this hutch is. It is an off-white set. It's kind of a yellowy off-white, but I think it works in this room really well. It's got a dresser base, like a full-size dresser. I think it's like 18 inches deep, which is a lot, but I love it. So I can fill up the bottom with storage, all sorts of drawers and cabinets and things that I can put overflow craft supplies and yarn in. And then the top is so pretty. Open shelving in the middle and glass cabinet doors on either side. So it's like the best of all worlds. It's everything I had hoped for. I got a great deal on it. I'm just so pleased that I found it. And it's going to look so good. So it's a little bit oversized for the space, but my idea is to put that kind of against the wall where my podcast area used to be. It still is today, but I'm going to move that to the area behind me. And then once we have that in, we're going to kind of see how the rest of the furniture fits around it. Anyway, none of that matters yet because there's absolutely nowhere to put that furniture right now. So my first steps are going to be to pull out the things that I need out of the way to get the new furniture in. I'm thinking I'm not going to touch the closet yet, although I plan on overhauling the closet. And I'm not going to touch this area, which is in front of me right now on my sewing desk and under my sewing desk, because that's not going to impact my ability to get the new furniture in. What I'm going to focus on today is clearing off the desk and bookcase and this whole area, because once I have that clear, then tomorrow when Josh is home, we can get the old furniture out and try to bring the new furniture up. And then once those are in place, I can start reorganizing. So for today, it's going to be a pretty boring day of clearing this stuff out somewhere. I don't know where it's going to go yet, just to get it out of the way. And then tomorrow we can pull the furniture in and start envisioning the new. Wow, look, I've accomplished so much. This room is so empty and clean, and I cleaned it all out in one day. Not. I did say maximalist, didn't I? I don't think I misrepresented this at all. Look how floofy. So yeah, this is a horrible mess. But the idea was to clean out this side for the new furniture, which is complete. So tomorrow, Josh and I will remove these two pieces of furniture, which are gone. And then this spot is for my new gorgeous hutch. And the bookcase will go against that wall somewhere, maybe behind where my chair is for podcasts, or maybe in the corner where that one is. But it kind of depends on how much space the hutch takes up and what we have to work with. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm so happy. It's so perfect. And the bookcase. Oh, I'm very excited to get started, but also I think I need to take a break. What about you, Anne? Did you do any heavy lifting? Didn't think so. Okay, so I have made some progress, but there's still a ton to do. After we took our break, I fiddled around and pushed these furniture pieces around a little bit to try to decide where to put them permanently. I think this is going to be near where they end up. And then we ordered lunch because we were so tired from moving furniture. And then we had a whole debacle with lunch. So now I'm exhausted from that. So I think I'm going to wrap this one up here because this is an awful lot to think about today. Now that I'm looking at it in the position that it's in, I wasn't sure how these two pieces would fit in relation to each other, and it does seem tight, which I knew it would be. I thought maybe I would use this bookcase kind of over here as a background for my podcast space, but that means my podcast chair has to be moved basically into the middle of the room, and I don't know that I love that. So I think this is as close as we're going to get, which means I have a lot less space in the corner than I thought I would. My dress form doesn't really fit back in here. I mean, nothing fits in here right now. I don't want to look over there, but I have to find somewhere to put the cat food dishes and the dress form. So I'm thinking when I'm taking the old organizational pieces out of the closet, getting rid of them, reorganizing things, moving things around, I was planning on reorganizing the end of the desk anyway, where I've got those two large cube organizers. Well, I should say one large one and one small one. I had already planned on taking the small one and putting it in the closet. I might come up with something else for the large one. I thought I was going to leave it out where it is, but I'm starting to think reclaiming that space would be nice. So I've got thoughts, I've got things I've got to work through, but I've got to get farther along before I can actually work through them. So my next steps, I think, because I can't even begin to clean the closet out until I sort through these books over here. And I have 3 boxes of books from my grandmother's knitting collection downstairs. It might be her whole collection. And those are going to go in the bookcase. So I think when we meet back here for the next installment, my first order of business is going to be to start filling in the bookcase and maybe parts of the hutch with books, make it aesthetic as I can, hopefully organize them in a way that I can wrap my head around and decide which books are going to stay out and which ones might get put into storage, because I know that there are a lot that I might not use as much, a lot of vintage baby patterns and stuff. And then once that's out of the way, hopefully I can start getting into the closet, pulling all of that stuff out, finding spaces for that, and then really digging into the rest of it. And then maybe this entire disaster zone will start to dissipate and become a beautiful room. And then, of course, another big part of it is going to be to reestablish my gallery wall on this side, as well as taking down the gallery wall behind the camera that I'm looking at right now and redoing that. And then we'll go from there. So thanks for sticking around to this one. I hope you're excited to come back for the next one and see what the next installment has in store, because there is going to be so much to get done. But I'm glad you stayed for this one. Either way, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so that you get notified when the next chapter is uploaded. And I'll see you back here then. Bye. The next step is to make more mess. There's a handwritten crochet pattern in here. Oh, I made it really far without crying, didn't I, guys? Welcome back to my disaster zone. I am ready to jump in and start making forward progress on this, because I love how it's starting to come together, but also this chaos is driving me nuts. It's already impeded my knitting a couple times, because probably for the better. I I wanted to cast on or start something new or look into projects a few times, and I wasn't able to because I can't really reach my stash effectively. My yarn winding equipment is tied up behind this stuff. So okay, maybe it's for the best, but also for my peace of mind, we got to get moving on this. Like I talked about in part 1, I think next steps are to fill this bookcase with my books. The ones I already had up here are stacked in the corner over there. And then I also have 3 boxes of knitting patterns and knitting books that belong to my grandmother, who recently passed away, and I have not looked through those yet at all. So first order of business today is to go through my own books, get them sorted, and then bring up my grandma's books, look through those, and decide which ones are going to stay out, which ones are going to be on the shelves, and how I'm going to organize them. So some of these actually already are my grandmother's that I had received earlier, specifically a lot of her Christmas patterns, so that I could make Christmas stockings from her patterns for family members that married in or were born after my grandma was unable to knit. I'm not sure how I want to sort this. I'm certainly going to have a pile of books that I need to let go of because there's some that I don't think I need around anymore. Here's the instructions for my iron. That's funny. All right, I think I'm definitely going to separate into baby patterns and not baby patterns, and then I'm certainly going to separate out like sewing from knitting, from crochet, from other crafts. I assume I have the most knitting books, and I think I want to put knitting books on this one because this is the shelf that's built in. The others are all movable, so that one's very sturdy, and also it's at a better level. Before, I had to have all of my books on the bottom shelves because the shelves were going to bow and break under the weight of books, which is a stupid thing for a bookshelf to do, and they're not easy to access. So I would prefer them up higher. I'm going to try to put the knitting ones in the middle. Maybe decoratively use some of these ones that are like general crafting. First, I think I'm going to resituate myself, and I am going to sort. So far we have, those are books I'm getting rid of, books about knitting, knitting magazines, knitting books, crochet books are over here. Oh no, those are Tunisian, those are crochet magazines, those are crochet books, Victorian needlework, sewing books, needlepoint patterns, and general crafting books. But I know that this is going to get fleshed out a lot when I pull up my grandma's books. But I do want to get these out of the way. So I'm going to tentatively put these in the shelves and then go get the boxes of my grandma's books. Let's go through these together, and we'll just go through my grandma's entire knitting library. All right. Whew, she's got a lot here. Okay, here's some needles. Also, I noticed there's this container full of circular needles, which is cool. Some of them, most of them are metal. I know my grandma preferred metal needles, but look, here's some nylon ones. There's some more. A full set of crochet hooks. Pink nylons. There's like a handwritten crochet pattern in here. I don't know what this makes. That's interesting. I'll have to preserve that and hold on to it and try to find out. Miss Audrey is here to help me now. Cool. All right. Well, we know I'll use those. And now the books. Knit Christmas stockings. Oh, little metal labels. Interesting. Knits for baby. Here we go. This is kind of what I was expecting. Oh, it's a bunch of little books. Each pattern is its own separate little pamphlet here. Interesting. Well, I'm going to look through these later. Interesting. Doll fashion. That's a category I wasn't prepared for. Oh, that's funny. I'm already out of room. Booties. Like baby knits, that's more my speed. Look at these. Nautical knits for kids, very specific. Oh, oh. Oh, these are cute. Okay. Lots of dishcloths. Oh, that's cute too. I'm gonna put that in the baby section. Scrubbies. Ugh. I have no interest in knitting scrubbies. I don't know about you guys. Debbie Makeover. That's cute. Okay, great. More dolls. Oh, cool. That's really, I've never heard of this one. The Quidditch sweater. Hey. Knitting planner. Looks like Grandma's attempt. Oh. This is actually helpful information for me because I've inherited some of her unfinished Afghans, and now I think I know who they were meant for. My intention is to someday finish the 2 Afghans, and I guess it's for my younger cousins, Emma and Ellie. It looks like Grandma had the same good intentions and poor follow-through that virtually everybody has when it comes to this sort of journaling. But I'm glad I have this. And even though I don't think that this planner's for me, this is the style pages that you can just take out. I might just keep the pages with my grandma's writing on them. Okay. Double check that later. This I've been looking forward to. I'm not going to go through this now. Oh, this says doll patterns. This is not the one I was looking forward to, but I do know my grandma has a lot of like printed patterns. Right. Baby. Cozy pillows. I like the look of that one. Oh, there's the dishcloth. She has so many of these little. Those are stinking cute. Oh, I love it. Ah. She has so many of these tiny. She had 2 of this one. Come on. This is a cute idea, but like how quaint that I could fit my yarn stash in this little book. You know I couldn't. Ooh, fancy. Designs from France. That's how you know they're fancy. Look at her gloves. She's wearing a watch over her gloves. Whole family. What did Grandma flag here? Oh, she likes this throw blanket. This dog sweater. She did not have a dog. I don't know whose sweater she was, or whose dog she was knitting a sweater for, but that's funny. More teddy bears. There's another binder of her printed stuff. She could not get enough dishcloths, this lady. More dolls. Not for me. Oh my gosh, there's more dolls in there. Oh, sewing. That's different. Holiday. Okay. Didn't we already see this one? Am I crazy? Grandma. Ooh, That is neat. Look, it looks like it's from like the 70s. Ah, I love this. This is cute. This is cute. I'll use this one. Oh, isn't that a vibe? This felted projects? Oh, that's interesting. Babies. Dishcloths. Babies. Ooh. All right, one more box. And then I have to try to figure out what to do with them all. Crafts. Not even knitting. No kid is ever that happy when you give them a knit sweater. They're always underwhelmed. We know better. That's a fun one. Interesting. Cool. I am impressed with the breadth of knitting patterns she has in here. This is insane. The rest looks like magazines. They're all packed in here so tight. Okay. Oh, they're not even. They're like books. Wait, this is familiar. So, this is the Afghan. This is the exact blanket that my grandmother has knit dozens and dozens of times. Everybody in my family has one. She's got the pattern memorized. She could crank them out without looking. You know, I know from watching her as a kid that it's knit in panels and then seamed together at the end. And I had actually previously sought out this pattern online. I bought a PDF of it on Etsy because I did some digging and I recognized it in the photo, and I bought it, but excuse me. Oh my gosh. This is the original copy that she used. Oh, I made it really far without crying, didn't I, guys? I'm gonna keep going. Oh, those are cool. I'm really interested in these vintage ones. Like, I'm more inclined to look through these. Oh wow, so intricate. I might have to break it down more specifically than just knitting because there's so many here. They're kind of already organized, aren't they? That was all hats. Many mittens. I would concur with that. Gosh, there's so many. Ooh, those are cool. Oh, okay, I think we're in the baby section. It does seem like this last chunk of books and magazines was organized. Oh my god, are those strawberry slippers? Grandma was very interested in knitting tiny booties for babies because I don't know anybody who has like 18 books about knitting baby booties. Like, how many variations? Their feet are this big. Like, what? Okay. No shade, Grandma. I'm just saying. Seems like she has a similar habit as me. Perhaps it's a genetic habit to collect patterns more than make them. Baby, 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 baby. Grandma had a lot of grandkids and a lot of nieces and nephews. you know? So like it makes sense. I don't know how much sense it makes for me as someone without children to own quite this many knitting patterns for babies and children. There's some in here that are like for kids. Ooh, check out these cool kids. Wow. You know what country kids do? They eat apples. Woo! Look at these like super fun like 80s sweaters. Yeah. I kind of really like that. I don't love color work, but that's a cool sweater. That's neat. From Ames. These are so classic. And okay, well, that was productive and interesting and emotional and all sorts of stuff. So now I generally sorted them, but I do think I want to sort them further because I did not realize the extent to which my grandma was going to have books and magazines that are a specific type of pattern. She has so many that are just dishcloths or just a certain type of sweater or just mittens or what have you. Also, very pleased to see that my grandma also didn't knit socks because I don't knit socks and I don't intend to and I don't care to. And I'm glad that I didn't end up with like 1,000 sock knitting patterns, although I did end up with 1,000 baby booty patterns and I don't plan on using those because they're just socks for babies. I am going to get rid of all the ones for dolls because I don't personally like dolls and I don't intend to knit or sew any clothing for dolls. And I'm also probably not going to keep the baby booty collection. And there's probably some others that are mixed in that I don't intend to keep, but otherwise I'm going to sort through them and sort them by like topic, I guess. And I'm not going to film it because, as you know, I love to keep up my Ravelry library, my Ravelry stash. And in order to update my Ravelry library for all of these, I'm going to have to take photos of the books so I can upload that later and double check that these are all in my library because otherwise I'm probably never going to actually remember which ones I have and get around to using them. But I'm much more likely to do so if these books are in my Ravelry library because then any patterns in them will show up in my searches when I'm looking for something to make. So I'm going to sort these and I'm not going to film it because I need to use my phone to catalog the books that I'm keeping, which is most of them. But I will see you once I've gotten a little farther along and I've got a system in place and we can start shelving. She knows when I'm talking to a camera. This little one always shows up when I'm rolling. Oh man. Look at that. I got a lot done. It looks terrible right now, but it's sorted and I'll probably end up rearranging the books when I actually stage the bookshelf with like pretty things as well. But for right now, up here is just general art or crafting books. These are books about knitting and some of my grandma's Christmas patterns that I used to have. These are knitting reference books. And then here we have just knitting pattern books, which are alphabetical by author. And then here we have not alphabetical, but sort of organized. There's like baby pattern books, baby pattern magazines, and loose patterns. And then this is like garment magazines. I sorted them out. So it's like there's a chunk of washcloths. There's a chunk of Afghans, and then a bunch of accessories. So they're kind of grouped together. And then down here I have crochet books and magazines. I have a couple Tunisian crochet books and then a handful of sewing books. So I feel very good to be done going through the books, but of course I still do have a lot ahead of me. I'm going to take a break and come back to it later today. I believe the next steps are going to be to pull everything out of the closet, which is frustrating because like living with it like this, stuff all over the floor and all over every surface, it's like, how could I put more stuff in here? But the truth is that I'm not going to be able to sort it and start putting it away until I have everything out and I have somewhere to put it away. So the next step is to make more mess. I'll see you when I'm ready for that. So for the last few weeks, as I've been thrifting, trying to find the furniture that I ultimately got from the estate sale and Facebook Marketplace, I have accrued a bunch of new vintage things that I want to put in my craft room. And then also while I was going through a storage trunk I have in my dining room, I found a bunch of stuff that should be in my craft room but somehow migrated downstairs a long time ago. So my dining room table is totally covered in stuff that needs to come up. Let me show you. A lot of this is stuff from antique stores or thrift stores. I've got a whole pile of baskets over here. Some of it is stuff that came with my purchases. This was a Facebook Marketplace find. I made a special trip for all of these embroidery hoops and these little heart picture frames, which are cute. Some of these containers of sewing supplies were at that estate sale where I got the bookcase. This mirror came for free with the hutch I bought. They were just trying to get rid of some other stuff at the time. This was from an antique store. Fun, right? Just little thrift store objects that I want to stage my stuff in. So this needs to make its way up to the craft room chaos, because even though I don't want to add to the chaos right now, it will be helpful to have some like empty containers to sort things into. Well, I obviously haven't cleaned it out in its entirety. There's still stuff up there. On this side, there's stuff stacked. This side is very shallow though. It's all just leaning against the wall. I was more concerned with cleaning out this area with the step, but I am very tired and quickly losing energy, and I don't want to hurt myself overexerting, doing too much in one day. So I'm gonna leave even worse of a tornado than I found it, but I recognize that it's progress, even though it's a lot. So I'm gonna come back to it later, whether that's today or another day, I don't know, but I'm gonna leave part 2 right here. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video if you made it this far, and I hope you subscribe to come back for future installments, because I don't want this to be the last you see of my craft room. It's a horrible, ugly mess. I want you to come back when it's finished and beautiful and functional. I will see you then, okay? I'll see you in the next one. Meet me there. Don't let me down. And apparently Annie is going to help me, and together we are going to go through all of these bins of knitting and cross stitch and sewing supplies that I inherited from my grandmother's. Ooh, Ooh, these are cool. I've never seen this before. Oh, this is overwhelming. Okay. None of these really have labels. So many. But there are a lot of little scraps. Hello, and welcome back for the third installment of my craft room redecoration update series. If you missed the first two episodes, you can find them in a corner here, and I hope you watch them first so you can get the whole experience of my manic craft room reorganization project. I'm coming at you 100 watts and smiley today because it is the most beautiful spring-like weather. It's the end of February. It's unseasonably warm. It's a record high for my area today. It is 70 degrees outside and it feels like pure spring. And I know it's all fake and that we're going to get 2 inches of snow in 2 days and I'm going to be sad again. But right now the windows are open and it's sunny and gorgeous and there's a breeze and everything is right with the world. So I've got the windows open in the craft room to get a little fresh air. And I thought I'd give you a little update about what I did off camera last night before I jump in today. So I was really exhausted yesterday from all the work I did in the morning that I documented in the last installment of the video. And I did end up doing a bunch more in the afternoon, but I was too tired to film it. Honestly, the filming adds a lot of extra effort and frankly, I don't think it was going to look that different. It would just be more time-lapse footage of me pulling junk out of the closet and sorting through it and this giant mountain of crap in my craft room. So why don't I show you what I did get done and then you can watch me do a time-lapse of what I'm going to do today. Okay, so here's the giant mountain of stuff. It looks a little different than it did last night because I did get some of it put away, but I mean, a large portion of it has been temporarily shoved into my cabinet, which is not what we want. However, you might notice that the organizers that were on the floor over here are missing because I did 100% empty out the closet and start to fill it back in. So before, a bunch of boxes were up top here. They were like partially empty. They were taking up a lot of space and were completely inaccessible. And then down here, this whole section was packed with old canvases and artwork and sketch pads and things. And what I've done instead is put all of that stuff up here. I know it's really hard to see because I don't have any light in here, but take my word for it. This all the way back until the end of time is canvases and artwork and old things that I'm going to hold on to because they're sentimental, but I don't need to access very often at all. That's an empty sewing machine case and some other junk that I don't need all the time, some books and scrapbooks and things. Here, I moved one of the organizers in, and right now, I don't think this is going to be a permanent setup, but I have put in some works in progress that I found while I was cleaning out my other things. Let's be honest, most of them are UFOs. Some of them are just seasonal things. There's a couple projects here that I'm very enthusiastic about and intend to finish, but they're warm weather stuff, so I just haven't been working on it in the winter. A lot of these are things that maybe won't get done, but I have to come back to that at a later time. And then there's more organizers here. I'm trying to keep it more accessible. There's no drawers that are blocked by other shelves this time. Right now, it's maybe not the best use of space, but it's out of the way and everything can be pulled in and out pretty easily at the moment. So that said, my goal for right now is going to be to actually get all the junk that I temporarily stuffed into that hutch to get it out of my way out so I can kind of style the hutch and the bookcase and get some more of this out of the way. And I'm probably also going to try to figure out what to do with the overflow yarn stash that I've shoved in the guest room for the time being. I'm thinking the closet might be the best place for that, so I do have a little more closet rethinking to do. Okay, so I have a lot of yarn stash unaccounted for. These things are very small and don't really need their own space. But this whole bin, I've talked about it a million times. I have a huge stash of Summer Kiss and Low Tide from Christmas tree shops a few years ago that was on sale. You can see I've got like 6 or 7 colorways of Summer Kiss. I think I only have 2 colorways left of low tide. This bag is entirely the 2 sweater quantities of Lamb's Pride that I have left from Rhinebeck this year. And this whole bag is just my acrylic. I mean, I have scraps and smaller skeins of acrylic too, but these are like my large skeins of acrylic, kind of this size and up. Okay, please forgive me, my microphone died, so I'm sorry if the audio is horrible, but I'm kind of losing steam. I put my overflow yarn stash in the closet. It's not ideal, but it fits. I would prefer all my yarn be out where there's light, but it is what it is. I did spend a long time starting to stage this hutch, but honestly I'm getting burnt out and my enthusiasm is waning, and I'm gonna wait until I'm at a better point because this is my favorite part and I'm not feeling it right now. So I'm gonna go probably have some dinner and maybe pick up later. It's been a minute. I did not intend to leave it this long between filming vlog updates. However, the work got kind of tedious. It got really repetitive, just like bins of junk I'm sorting through. There's only so much sped up footage I'm sure you're willing to watch of me sorting things when you can't really see and follow along with what's happening. And honestly, it became too much of a chore to film it. Sometimes it's worth it to be able to share with you the details that I'm working on, and sometimes it's just twice the work for very little added value to the video. So I did a lot of work in here over the course of about a week, which was mostly sorting, a little bit of styling my things in my cabinets, but truly it was mostly going through junk and putting it in a bin, and a lot of changing my mind and going back through it and moving things around to try to make it as good as I can. And then I got sick for a week. While I was sick, was, occasionally up to working in here, and I was running out of things to do. But what I decided to do was keep chipping away at the small stuff, and I saved a couple big important tasks that I definitely wanted to film. So now I've kind of basically done everything I can do without filming more updates. So let me give you a little update on like the status of where everything is, and then we'll get into the juicy part of today's video, which is a big one. Okay, so here is where we're at. It still looks messy, but I'm sure you can see there's so much more open space in this area. It is not one big mountain of junk anymore. Got a little corner shelf here because I felt that this was wasted space. And then there is still junk on this end, but just because I don't have very many flat surfaces to store it on, I did clear off most of the desk and kind of reorganize my sewing area. It's hard to see here with the junk I have, but actually most of the desk is usable now and not staged. Mostly taking stuff off the wall, but not the stuff at the tippy top I would need a ladder for. And obviously I haven't cleaned the wall yet either. There's some spots from the same pictures being in the same spot for a long time. But generally, it looks really different, doesn't it? I don't want to get too into the details of what I've staged here because that's part of the reveal, but basically, I'm kind of just putting my pretty clutter back in. This is sort of my new podcast area, and I decided to move my chair and my table, my little ottoman, out from the wall a little bit so that I had room to put this, which is actually a full-size standing height cutting table. So I could actually do fabric cutting in here. So it's really fun because it has a lot of storage. It's not even utilized properly right now, but there's storage on both shelves here. And then both sides are a leaf that folds up and has a leg that swings out. And it's all on casters. So on a day when I want to sew, I can roll it out into the middle of the room here and set it up, and I'll actually have a full-size cutting table that I'll be able to use and do all of my sewing here in my craft room, which is the whole idea. I just haven't had the space to do that before, which I'm really excited about. Annie's been helping me a lot. She is very nosy and she's in here constantly. So let's talk about the junk that I still have on the floor. This box doesn't have very much stuff in it, but it's things that belonged to relatives that are sentimental, that I don't need to be out all the time, that I actually kind of want to store away in plastic to stay protected. But there's a lot of space in there yet, so I haven't put it away because I might still add to it. This whole stack is empty organizers and bins and baskets and containers that I might use to organize other things before I'm done. And this, basically everything I have left to sort through, is all things that belonged to my two grandmothers. So that is going to be my task for today. We're going to set up the camera, and apparently Annie is going to help me, and together we are going to go through all of these bins of knitting and cross stitch and sewing supplies that I inherited from my grandmothers, so we can see what we're working with, but also find a place for it in the craft room. My two grandmothers both did various sorts of fiber crafts. Both did a small degree of sewing. One was a lifelong adamant knitter. She taught me how to knit. The other used to cross stitch years ago. She gifted me a bunch of her cross stitching things. I took a handful of patterns, but she gave me a lot of thread and materials for that, which is something I intend to delve into someday, but I'm just not there right now. That said, of course, the things she gave me are precious to me. And so there might be sewing stuff in here. There is a lot of knitting and cross stitch. And these are all of the bags that my relatives brought to me of my grandmother's stuff, and I've never looked through them at all. So these have all been sitting in my house, some of them for years, some of them for months, and I haven't looked inside of any of them. All right, Annie. Firstly, this is one of the things that I have opened before. This is a bunch of bags of thread that belonged to my cross-stitching grandmother. And they are in these bags with labels on them. So I believe she sorted these into these baggies based on the color family from the thread manufacturer. I don't actually understand because they don't look like color families to me, but this bag says 700, and I can see that all the colorways on the labels start with 700, and the same for all of them. So this system must have made sense to her, but I don't use this kind of thread, so I genuinely don't understand it. But I'm going to look up what the thread labels mean before I take them out of these baggies to better understand why they're labeled like this before I break it up, if I decide to. This box is a bunch of her cross-stitching like supplies, or just sewing supplies in general. We've got a bunch of metallic thread, extra of these little spools, needles, a bunch more thread down here that was already in use. So again, I will probably just keep everything in here as it is. If I find more cross-stitching little supplies, I would add them to this. But I don't think I'm going to do a better job organizing it than it is there. Okay, so a couple of these bags are pretty easy. This one, I know exactly what it is. The earlier installment in this series, you watched me go through my other grandmother, the one that was a knitter, her knitting library. I inherited all of her knitting books because nobody else in my family knits, so nobody else can use them. So in a previous video in this series, which if you haven't seen, you should go back and watch because that was the start. You should watch things from the start if you can. And we went through all of those, and while I was doing that, I found a knitting pattern that kind of made me cry while I was filming the video because it was like grandma's pattern. Like, she memorized it my entire life. I watched her knit the same Afghan pattern over and over and over again, and she had it completely memorized. She made dozens of these Afghans, and when she found herself unable to knit anymore, she was halfway through 2 of them. So I have inherited these. I know from my grandma's knitting journal that she kind of started to fill out that I also inherited in that library, which of my cousins these 2 were intended for. At some point, I do intend to finish these for my cousins, but it'll be a lot of work, and I don't know when. But like just so I can show you what my grandma was about, let's pop this one open. So it's funny that this one's blue because I've literally never seen her make one in any color other than this. This texture is so nostalgic for me. So grandma only used straight metal needles her whole life, which honestly are the bane of my existence. Straight metal needles are the worst, and I hate them. I will try for you, grandma, but I might switch to circulars at some point because yikes. But everybody in my family, with the exception of the 2 youngest cousins that didn't get these 2 yet, had this Afghan. This is Erin Afghan. And oh, look, it's labeled. I didn't even know that. For as long as I can remember, they're always this color, this exact color. This is Red Heart Super Saver color 313. And this is it. Like, she's used it, and it's beautiful. I don't question her decision. It looks like that classic era knit when you make it in this kind of off-white color. From looking at the pattern last time, I know that you knit 5 of these cable panels and seam them together, and then you do finishing on the edge. I believe the finishing as written in the pattern is a fringe, but I know that grandma used to switch up what finishing she did on them. Some people had fringe, but after they were used and washed for years, the fringe would like mat together and not be so nice. And there were later versions of the blanket where she actually had a crochet edge on it. So, which is interesting because I've never known her to be a crocheter, but I guess a lot of knitters know a degree of crochet, and or maybe she had somebody else do it. I don't know, but some of them definitely had a crochet edge. So at some point, I hope to finish these 2. There are finished panels at the bottom here. I hope there's like 4 finished panels at the bottom here, and I only have to knit half of one, but with my luck, I have to knit most of it. I'm just not looking forward to a very long cable project, but I absolutely feel like this is my grandma's legacy, and I owe it to my 2 cousins who are the last of the generation that all got blankets to get their blankets. And I guess my one cousin is getting a blue one made out of Caron 1 pound, which is odd to me. Like I said, I've never seen her do a color other than that Red Heart color, but here we are. This bag, I also know exactly what this is because my grandma's go-to main pattern was absolutely that Afghan, and she could do it without even thinking about it. She was so good at knitting those panels. But her like comfort fun project was little towels where you like knit the top into a little loop that you loop around something in your kitchen. So she used to like to make those and sell them at markets and things, and we all also have dozens of those. She loved to give them to us as gifts. In this bag is just a ton of the tiny towels that she used to make those. So she purchased all of these with the intention of making her little handy towels. There are a million in here. So I don't think that's my kind of knitting. I'm not sure that that's what I want to do. I actually, until this moment, was under the impression that these were all already processed. Like she had like cut in half larger ones and added holes to them. But she hasn't. These are all intact. So I don't know. Maybe these would be better suited, donated to like a shelter or something where people might need washcloths and towels. Let's go in here. This is a smaller one, and I can see through the sides that I think it's all Lion Brand homespun, which, yes, it is. It looks like 6 different colorways, and for some reason, everybody donates this stuff. I have so much Lion Brand homespun that I have gotten from thrift stores. Like all of this is homespun from thrift stores. Actually, this is a very similar color family too. So at some point I will likely be making a blanket out of this stuff because I don't know what else I could do with this just vast quantities of this yarn. That will be added to stash like regular yarn. This is one of the bigger bags. I'm intrigued to see what's in here. Oh, sewing. A bunch of thread. A little tin shaped like a button, or it's not a tin, I guess. It's like a plastic bin. Oh, she is so nosy. This is snapped, or excuse me, this is hook and eyes. Yeah, little sewing notions. There are like a bunch of patches, and these look like they were just cut out of a novelty fabric and meant to be made into patches, which is cute. I wonder what she had intended for those. Yeah, sewing stuff that will be assimilated into my sewing supply collection. I don't know if you can see Annie in this shot, but she's making herself comfortable. Almost certainly all of the yarn in here from my grandma is going to be acrylic. She loved working with acrylic, and she did subscribe for a long time to those Annie Knit and Crochet Club. So I've previously received a bunch of those, just like single or 2 skein quantities of Annie's yarn, which I believe this is something like that. It's very soft for acrylic. It's nice stuff. So I feel like I'm just going to be quite expanding my acrylic collection today. I think kind of fluffy white, but it's rough. It's definitely not natural fiber, but it's pretty. Girl after my own heart. Look, can't get rid of a tiny little nubbin like that. Acrylic. I can't say that about every skein. They're all, I will comment if they're not acrylic because they're gonna be. This heavy, hefty organizer of buttons. Oh, this is actually kind of a nice surprise because I've been able to see this like edge sticking out of the bin all this time, and I thought this was all just going to be these like novelty plastic buttons that she used on those kitchen towels, but it looks like there's actually some unique stuff in here, and a lot of them look like they were like pulled off of garments or existing things. Oh, this is fun. I have already sorted through all of my button collection and sorted it into bins, but I kind of like the idea of keeping my grandma's separate so that I know which ones were hers. And also, like, I'm not going to do a better job of sorting them than this because they're already sorted by color. And this is so full that this won't assimilate into the organizers that I've already got going anyway. So I am just going to add this to my button cabinet as is. This looks like some in progress stuff, maybe. All right. These are like electric shears. They're so funny. Okay. Oh, here we go. So this is like, she got started on this one already. Halloween black cat. Maybe I'll finish this one though. That suits my household. So these are the ones she already like cut and folded over and got ready to turn into kitchen towels. Oh, I bet this is a baby garment. This is so cute. This is definitely this yarn. And it's cabled. That might not even be a baby garment. That might be a panel for an adult garment. For somebody smaller than me, but it might be. I don't know. A bunch of string needles. There's 2 of these. I don't know what they are. They feel like cotton. They kind of strike me like blankets, but they're too small to be a blanket. Maybe dish towels? I wish I could track down what these were meant to be. These might have just been one of those Annie's kits. Okay, now there's 3 of these, which I believe are knitting needles. This might be her full collection of knitting needles. So many. Oh my gosh. All right. Okay, this one looks like it has definitely more needles, but notions other than needles too. Oh, there's some nylon ones in here. My favorites. A bunch of sets of DPNs. Oh, these are fat needles. Okay, she had them sorted by size. All the ones that were in with those notions were quite small. The first one I opened was like the middle-sized ones. And these are the chunky boys. This is overwhelming. Okay, this is more supplies, so maybe I should go through this. Oh, this is more Red Heart. Oh, it's labeled. Oh my gosh, she labeled it with a label maker. Erin Child sweater to finish. Yes, ma'am. Will do. I hope the pattern is in here. This is a back panel. It's hard because the stockinette is rolling up, but there is sleeve shaping here. This is the front panel. Oh my god, all she needs are... This is the front panel. I got them because the back is just plain stockinette, but the front has this pattern. I am going to figure out what pattern book this came from because it's got to be here. I inherited everything. It shouldn't be too hard to find. It's just a stockinette sweater with this cable motif down the front. 100% going to finish that. Another partial project. This is cotton. I think another like dishcloth or something to that effect. Still attached to its yarn. More needles. Ooh, these are cool. I've never seen this before. They're like, it's just like a clear acrylic semicircle, but it would lay flat on a page, and there's a very thin line running right through the middle. So I imagine it's for reading charts, and you can move this to the line of the chart you're on. That is very clever, and I've never seen that. All right, there's some embroidery in here. Oh, there's a half-finished embroidery project in here. I wouldn't say half-finished. Okay. It's got some flowers, and then this one did some of the leaves. That seems like something I might be able to endeavor to work on at some point. So I am finding a lot of assignments in this bag. Part of an embroidery hoop. Oh, there's a bunch of embroidery hoops here. Now I see them. Annie's Hook and Needle Club. This is cute. Little basket, and it's got like yarn wrapped around some spools and little needles sticking out of it. These are just some little decorative yarn things, sticky notes and buttons, little sliding tins, which are really cute actually. Ooh, this looks like 3 skeins of Burnett Sweetie, which says 80% acrylic, 10% mohair, 10% wool. It's very pretty. Super pale minty green. And it's like an imitation mohair sort of thing. Well, I guess there is some real mohair in it, so it's not imitation, but it's largely imitation. I wonder, it is the color mint. Okay, some more tools in here. I see another spool of thread, a bunch of small crochet hooks, seam ripper, another latch hook, and a pair of scissors. Embroidery transfer patterns. Okay, this is the 2 bags of her yarn. Scraps of acrylic, some sort of cotton, red heart, kind of a nice pattern if you look at them like this. There's some Karen Simply Soft in here. A bunch of stuff, more Annie's Knit and Crochet Club. My grandma loved her some minty pale greens. That's like the 10th one. We're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere here. So that was everything from my one grandmother, and then I know that the other one gave me this box of knitting things. She's never knit as long as I've been alive. I've never known her to knit. But you know, like a lot of people from that generation, she knew how. She just wasn't really into it. She had other hobbies. So this was her box of knitting things that she had given me. That we did look through together at the time, but again, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I really don't remember. I do remember that hers was largely acrylics also. Very 80s, 90s sort of geometric idea. I don't know if you can tell, but all of these black sections are seed stitch, so there's like a nice texture to this. Oh, this is different. This is like super chunky. I think this was several strands held together. This one still has live stitches, so I guess she changed her mind about that too. But there are a lot of little scraps. Oh, this is overwhelming. Okay. None of these really have labels. There are some others, like mostly it appears to me that these are like DK and worsted acrylics. There is some like embroidery thread in here. We do see some slightly bulkier ones at the bottom. It's difficult for me to pull these out to show them because there's a lot of little tiny balls of thread that are just loose in here. Okay, I think this is enough. Honestly, it was fun to see these like started projects. I do not know yet what I'm going to do with this quantity of yarn. I have ideas. If you have any ideas about what I can do with all of this yarn, hit me up in the comments. I'm thinking right now, at least one blanket, possibly more blankets for like my sister or my new nephew or, you know, people in my family who would appreciate something made from grandma's stuff. I say my sister because we're the only people that have the same 2 grandmas, and I could use the scraps from both of them and make like a cool scrappy blanket. Cool. So this was fun, but I think I'm going to move on. And now that I've gone through it, there are definitely some things that I can put away, but right now I am not ready to tackle the acrylic stuff. So I'm going to find a space for that and kind of sort through some of the other notions that are easier for me to deal with today. I've been dreading working on this, but at the same time, dying to have it done. Even though we can make everything, we won't. I got a lot done. I had a couple little strokes of genius. First of all, I don't know why I didn't think about taking pages out of magazines before. I have absolutely been avoiding this project. I am so excited about having the finished room and so enthusiastic about the things that are done and look so good, but at the same time, I don't have the energy to work on this most of the time. If you've been around on the channel before, you know I have a full-time job and that my knitting and my YouTube channel and all of this is hobbies. I've been really struggling the last month. I tore this room apart and got started and had so much enthusiasm in the beginning. And then because I was unwell for a little bit, I missed some work and work piled up. And then it kind of took over and I did not have enough energy left after that to be able to devote to this room. So it's been really frustrating for me to have my home in such a state of upset while I'm not even making progress on it. And I say this not by way of apology because I know I'm not beholden or obligated to my viewers or my fans or whatever. It's because I want you to know that people on the internet are the same, right? Maybe 2 seconds passed for you in between different clips of this video or the previous videos, but for me, days or sometimes weeks passed because I don't have the energy to be a full-time human all the time, just like anybody else. I've been dreading working on this, but at the same time, dying to have it done. Basically, all I have left to do is figure out how to hang up all this stuff on my 2 gallery walls. This blank wall is going to get some stuff. The wall that you can't see now that's behind the camera is my main gallery wall, and that's going to get some stuff. I've done a teeny little tiny bit off camera of putting things on the wall, but mostly the only energy I had put into it, which again was a couple weeks ago, was choosing frames for things and rearranging the stuff I have here to fit in frames. Went to Michael's to pick up a frame and maybe picked up a couple little things that I'd like to add to the craft room that we'll do at the same time. I haven't even put anything up except I did hang the bulletin board and, well, let me turn the camera on and show you. So I hung up the bulletin board here, and I do have a bag on the ground over there of things that used to be pinned to the bulletin board, and I'll pick and choose which ones will go back up here eventually. But everything that's on the wall, there's a couple things that were already in those spots and they're really way up high, and I kind of don't think I need to necessarily move them for the new gallery walls. Other things like this one, which is in a new frame, and these I was just trying out on hooks that were already there. You can see these command hooks. These walls are very sensitive. I'm sure you can see a couple different spots where the plaster has chipped and flaked off, not from any excessive amount of force or tugging or anything like that. The plaster is just really very brittle in this room and hasn't been redone in a very long time. And there are unfortunately a lot of spots on this wall where command hooks took little divots out of it. So part of my task is going to be making the wall aesthetic, obviously in a way that I like it, but also strategically placing my artworks so that they cover up these little plaster spots. I don't know if I like where these are. These are just on hooks that were already there. I think I started to say this and then just got derailed. I left some of the command hooks on the wall for fear of taking them down and creating more divots in the plaster. I think if those are stable there and they've been there a long time and they're doing their job, I'm going to wait and see if I can reuse them for a different piece before taking them down and kind of disrupting the status quo of the plaster. I moved my 2 wall-mounted spool organizers over in the corner, and they are at a convenient spot to stand up and grab a spool if I'm sitting at the sewing machine. This one back here is all black and white and gray and kind of off-white threads that I will use most often, and that organizer does not have wall mount hardware or holes in the back, so that's why it's kind of awkwardly leaned against the wall there. That's the best solution I've found. I don't love that it's there, but it's not in the way. And I really wasn't sure where else to put it. All of this stuff is command hooks and hardware and things that I might yet find a place to hang in this room and figure some stuff out. I don't know. See, it's like I'm already looking at it and thinking, do I really want to do this today? Which I don't, but I do want to have it done. Today is the first day of our staycation. My husband and I have just decided to take a week off of work just to be away from work, even though we don't have anywhere to go. And I'm glad we did, and I'm excited to catch up on some housework and, start to relax outside of work. So I'm gonna do this now. This is the time. It's not gonna get any better. It's not sitting anymore. It's not gonna make it any less of a task. We're gonna work on these. I wanted to mention the things I got from Michael's. I forgot. So a few weeks ago, I went to a Goodwill. I got a bunch of frames that I liked that were wood. Most of them are not like vintage or anything, but they're at least real wood frames or some sort of pretty. I had picked up a couple at like Home Goods. Basically, I just wanted to get everything out of those like plastic or plain cheap black frames that I have to make the frames themselves add to the appearance of the room. When I brought those home, I bought that whole batch of thrifted frames with no knowledge or expectation of the sizes of the things that needed to be framed or like what I would use them for. I just picked out a bunch that I liked. The only thing that didn't find a suitable frame after that haul was this cross-stitch piece that my grandmother finished years ago, and she had already mounted it and had it ready for framing on this piece of particle board, but I didn't have any square frames that would fit it, so I went to Michael's to get this one. Ironically, I found this frame at Goodwill that I really liked it, but I didn't find anything to put in it, and I don't want to use the art piece that's in here, but I thought it was so funny because I didn't buy it for the art piece, and then later I was kind of looking at it, and I was like, there's 2 baskets of yarn. Obviously, like there's baskets everywhere. I love baskets. There's plants everywhere. This is kind of my thing, but I really don't love the like early noughties country farmhouse font aesthetic, but some of the things in here kind of do hit the mark, I have, interestingly, had a fun time filling up odd size frames with fabric. So if you recognize this one, this is leftover fabric from when I made a sundress a couple years ago. A sundress that I've never worn because it's a fit nightmare and I have trauma associated with the dress from the horrible sewing process, but the fabric's really pretty and it looks good in there. This one is a pocket square from our anniversary photo shoot. It's a William Morris print, The Strawberry Thief. So I did have a fun time kind of matching some stuff I already had around the room, like postcards. I'm going thrifting in a couple days, so maybe I'll find something there. Anyway, when I went to Michael's to get the square frame, I found some other things. Their whole spring line was on sale, and they had a lot of different macrame plant hangers, which are the kind of things that I always tell myself, I can make this because I'm capable of making this. But will I ever take the time and get around to it? Probably not. I was like, you know what? I like them. They're very cheap right now. I think I'll use them for a long time. I'm just going to do it. Even though we can make everything, we won't. This one's harder to see the base, but it's like right, they're just fun. Pretty things. And then I got wall hooks to mount them on the wall because these were also 60% off, which made them very cheap. So there's a couple here that are just like a metal L bracket. And then this one I thought was pretty. It's like a dark wood. So I think it would be nice to put a plant hanger above this window so that we can have something in this area that's kind of empty. And then I did have this 2-tier little shelf basket thing that I bought at the Target dollar spot like a couple years ago, and I never found a space to use it, and it's just been in a closet in my house ever since. We're going to experiment. So I would like to be ambitious and state my goal for the day, but because I've been dealing with low energy and over expecting of myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do some goals for the week because I have the week off, and I would like to have this room done before I go back to work in 8 days. So I want to hang those hanging items that we talked about. I would like to deal with the 2 gallery walls and get those set up. And I would like to find a place for all of the empty baskets because in the process of rearranging everything, I've picked and chosen different vessels to put things in, and I have a lot of baskets that I love and I'm going to hang on to, but they are not in use right now and I don't know where to store them. So we're really close. I think it's starting to look good. Now that I'm in here again, I keep looking over this way at all the stuff that's already done, and I'm very enthusiastic, and I think it's so pretty, and I can't wait to like finish up and be able to spend time in here. As it is, I haven't even been able to spend time in here in its unfinished state because there's so much stuff on my chair. The natural first step is to start working on the gallery walls. As uncomfortable as it makes me, and as much as I don't feel like doing it right now, we got to get out the command hooks and see what works. Okay. As expected, I'm exhausted after doing not that much work. What I've learned is I need more art to put on the walls. Like, I thought what I had with some supplementary stuff from the thrift store would fill them up, but clearly not. I've got enough here for the start of my podcast background, but I would like it to go all the way up because I'm a maximalist, and same on the other wall. So it's starting to fill in. I like the direction it's going. I'm not there yet. I don't have enough things. Like I said, I have plans to go thrifting with my mom in a couple days in Ithaca, which in my experience and my mom's is the best place to go thrifting because it's all bangers in Ithaca. It's all good. The stores there just slap, to be frank. I will be on the lookout for more little pieces that I can add. I'm going to try to be creative, include things that might not traditionally be wall decor, but might function as wall decor for some added interest. A recent Facebook Marketplace lot of embroidery hoops that I purchased included 3 of these cute little, like very 90s, they're plastic, golden frames. So maybe I'll just find little scraps of fabric in my cabbage patch that I can pop into these and add in between for cute little touches. I like the idea of doing that. So I'm gonna break for today, but we did make some progress. I'm feeling too drained to get out the drill and hang those brackets up to do the hanging items. And I don't even know what plants I'm going to put in them yet anyway. I might have to pick up some plants when I go to Ithaca on Tuesday. Oh no. I feel like we're closer to the finish line, but my anxiety is still running high about the state of the house. So I'm definitely motivated to work on this all week and to get it done this week. So I'll see you next time I'm back with an update. I have not been feeling very vloggy today, but I did do a bunch of work. I hung one plant hanger. I hung that little tiered basket thing that looks so cute, and a bunch of the pieces. I've gotten to the point where I have one more frame left, and it's that big green one that I don't have anything to fit in, and a couple more small postcards or little freebie art pieces that I thought would fill in the gaps nicely. So at this point, it's just going to be a matter of thrifting tomorrow and finding pieces that work, and hopefully finding some fun things to fill in the gaps also. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow when we're on our little thrifting adventure. Full disclosure, I'm going thrifting immediately after I get a haircut, and I'm planning on losing a lot of this. So next time you see me, my hair will look a lot different. I will feel a lot lighter and be ready to go thrifting. Hey, we're back. So, had a successful thrifting trip yesterday. Also, obviously, a haircut. Slightly less success with the haircut. It was a bit of an ordeal, but I got out eventually. That sounds awful. It took a long time, and she did not understand what I was asking for the first time, and basically had to give me a second haircut. But we went to 4 thrift stores in Ithaca, and I found stuff at all 4. All of the vintage stores and antique stores were closed. I don't know if it's just because it's a Tuesday or what. I did focus on finding small things, and things that even if I have to do a little work or change the color or whatever to add to the walls, because at this point they're filling in okay. I do have a lot of larger things that are working out, although I could use a couple more. But mostly I'm concerned about the little gaps in between the paintings. I'm going for maximalism. I want it to be a striking gallery wall, or 2 striking gallery walls, I guess. And in my opinion, if you're going to do it, you have to do it. You really have to fill it in, and it has to be really rich and visually interesting, or else I've missed the mark. So I bought little stuff to fill in the blanks and some more frames. I don't know. Let's look. I would like more interesting things, 3-dimensional things. I've been really interested on like Instagram. I've seen several people like inserting plants into the middle of the wall, which is not something that ever occurred to me, like by using little shelves or, propagated plants in little tubes. It looks so good. So I might do that. I didn't find anything to use for that today, but I did recently see a little thingy like that at Michael's. So maybe I'll try to drop in and get one of those. I do have a couple like shelves, like the white command shelf that I've used to hang my grandmother's cross stitch piece. There are smaller shelves that are like this wide. So I got a couple of those on Amazon because they were on sale to just insert into the larger setup, and then I can put some sort of object or maybe a small plant on there. I don't know. Let's dive in and look what I got. Elephant in the room. I did break my yarn band technically because there is this gorgeous cone of yarn, and this thrift store had a lot of very overpriced cones of yarn that most of them were like novelty yarns. One of them even still had the tag on the inside from the warehouse that said by weight it was sold at an outlet store for $12.83, and they were selling it for $40. And I was like, it has a price tag on it, dude, like whatever. But as far as I could tell, in the cones of yarn section, this was the only one that was like natural fiber and probably actually worth the $40. And then I did manage to look up this yarn base on Ravelry. I found it once I got home. It's discontinued. I can't figure out how much it would have been originally, but there are a couple other cones that are going for about $40 or $50 on like eBay or secondhand sites. So I'm very pleased with this one. I think the color is really pretty. It's soft. It's a 78% mohair, 13% wool, 7% nylon is what is written on the label, but that doesn't add up. So it's probably actually 9% nylon, I believe. And it was Barrington Mohair by Valley Yarns. It used to be sold by Webb's. Yeah, it says 1,000 yards per 14-ounce cone. So if this is nearly full, if not entirely full. It's an overfilled cone. I don't know if you can see, but there is a lot of yarn above the actual physical cone. And I think that this is a beautiful sweater quantity of natural fiber that I'll be pleased to use next winter. Other craft supplies, not for the wall. This bag of polyfill. I don't buy polyfill at craft stores because I think it's wasteful and it's just more plastic. However, if I see it at a thrift store, I do pick it up because it's already been discarded by somebody at that point and it's significantly cheaper, and I do find use for it occasionally. I got this tiny cone of cotton yarn that I probably will never use, but I think that cones of yarn are pretty decoration, and it was only $1. And I got some fabric. These are 1-yard cuts. These 2 are of the same kind of 90s floral print, and this one was also a $2 1-yard cut. Everything else, with the exception of this basket that everything is stored in, is for the gallery walls. And this basket, if not in here in my office, will just be used to put like an uglier planter in. But I was thinking of using it for that spider plant that sits behind me over here, because it's in a green pot, but it's like a plastic pot that's not my favorite. So I might try that. If I don't like it, I know I have planters at work that I would rather cover up with a pretty basket. So let's get into the frames. I got a lot done. I had a couple little strokes of genius. First of all, I don't know why I didn't think about taking pages out of magazines before. Specifically, I have a bunch of back issues of In Her Studio. It used to have a different name, and I don't remember if this is the new name or the old name. But it's basically just like inspirational photos and articles of people's creative studios. So it's like the most inspiring thing for a project like this. So I did pull a few pictures out of those that I thought were fun and put them in some of the frames I had. I also thought of the perfect use for the green frame because I bought that super cute fabric a couple years ago at Joann. It's a novelty like quilter's cotton, but it's retro looking comic strips of people being super frustrated sewing. And I bought it because it was so funny and relatable, and I haven't thought of anything to use it for. So I just cut a big chunk of it and framed it so you can read that. I mean, it's kind of high up, you can't read that, but the vibe is there. It's so silly. I think it's really funny, and I'm glad I thought of that. I kind of used more bits of scrap fabric or postcards or what I have laying around. It's starting to look a lot more filled in. There are some small things I want. Like I said, I want to add some plants interspersed, probably in little propagation tubes. And I want to check Michael's because I did see some of those there. I also want to get like some sort of probably fake floral to go in this one, but there's still space on both walls. Little stuff would help fill it in. I think I might back out of my vlogging here. I think I've had a lot of fun so far putting this all together, but it's nearly done and you guys are basically getting the reveal spoiled for you. So I'm gonna take the next couple days to put my finishing touches on, and I'll see you back when it's over. I'm so ready. I did spend the next couple days putting finishing touches on the room, but that was a few months ago. Now I've had a couple months to live with the craft room and I really do love it. I still have a lot of issues keeping it tidy all the time, but I don't think I'm alone in that. Since then, I've had a couple great garage sale and thrift store finds, and I've been able to really fill in the gallery walls and all over the room with these pretty vintage picture frames. Like most projects that most knitters take on, this is going to be a work in progress. There are things about it that are not perfect, that I still want to fix. For instance, the tablecloth on my cutting table is just an untouched piece of fabric. And I've still got more pictures that I want to hang up, but I just don't have the supplies to hang them up right now. And that's okay. Just like all my other creative endeavors, I'm not upset that it's not done. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work on this room and to work in this room and enjoy it. And a huge part of that is going to be filming and producing videos. As ever, I'm so pleased that you stuck around to the end of the video. Please feel free to comment and tell me about your craft room. Tell me your thoughts on my craft room. And if you're not already, please consider subscribing. I do regular podcasts. I do all sorts of fiber festivals and crafty content. And I think if you watched this whole series, you will be aware that I picked up quite a few projects along the way here. I've had lots of great suggestions so far on what to do with my grandmother's yarn stashes and how to finish some of Grandma's projects, and I'm looking forward to digging into all of that in the future, along with my regular knitting content. So I'm very, very flattered and grateful that you watched today. Give the video a like if you've liked my finished craft room, and as always, I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.